The man only stole an ivory tusk, but he was caught by the African natives. They immediately turned him into beggar's chicken. His whole body was wrapped in thick mud. As the roasting time grew longer, the scent of meat gradually spread. His companion's fate was even worse. The man's limbs were tightly bound together. He could barely move by hopping. Then the natives let him go ahead. The man thought they had a change of heart. In reality, this was just their form of entertainment. He only ran for a few dozen meters. The natives behind him eagerly swarmed forward, and he ultimately became their outlet for frustration. At this point, George had already been so scared that his legs were trembling. If he had known it would end like this, he would never have dared to come and poach elephants. But what George didn't expect was the natives didn't harm him at all. Instead, they kindly brought him delicious food. After making sure he was full, they then took George to an open area. The leader casually shot an arrow. Then he signaled his men to let George go. For a moment, George was confused, but he half-believingly started running forward. Strangely, the natives were excited and dancing with joy. It seemed like they were celebrating something. George grew more anxious. He looked back anxiously with every few steps, until he was sure that he had disappeared from their sight. They were still cheering in the same spot. Only then did George finally relax. But what George didn't know was, the moment he crossed the line of the arrow shot by the leader, a native suddenly charged out as if he had lost his mind. He approached George at a lightning-fast speed. Meanwhile, George was leisurely strolling along, completely unaware that danger was closing in fast. When he finally sensed something was wrong, the native was less than 200 meters behind him. But at this point, the native slowed down. He threw his spear directly, but it missed and hit off target. It was picked up by George. He turned around and returned the weapon to its rightful owner. The father saw this from afar and rushed forward, but it was too late. The son had no sign of life left. The older brother only glanced coldly at his dead sibling. Then he turned and walked away. It seemed as if he had made a decision. A brand new chase had begun. But George was already at his breaking point. His strength was nearly spent, but the natives clearly weren't planning to let him go. They kept following closely behind. Just as George was about to collapse, the situation suddenly reversed. The native, from running for so long, had exceeded his body's limit. He suddenly suffered a heart attack and bled to death. Once again, George narrowly escaped danger. But he knew the danger was far from over. He couldn't afford to stop for even a moment. He dragged his exhausted body slowly forward. Fortunately, he found some fresh water dropped by the natives. That helped George barely keep going. Then he made himself a pair of shoes from animal hide. He planned to rest and recover for a bit. But unexpectedly, he saw a native coming after him again. George quickly stood up. Luckily, the native didn't spot him. He hid under a cactus. He deliberately poked it to release the white liquid. Once the liquid oozed out, George carefully moved away. Soon the native had also caught up to the cactus. He immediately noticed the mark on the cactus. He immediately became alert and scanned the surroundings. Sure enough, in a hidden corner, he saw half of George's foot sticking out. He thought he could kill his enemy right then. But little did he know, the real prey was behind him. Once all this was done, George felt no joy at all, because he knew his situation was about to become even more dangerous. Not only did he have to keep an eye out for the natives behind him, but he also had to figure out how to find food. Otherwise, even if he escaped the pursuit, he would eventually starve to death here.